Good morning. We're happy to have you here today to announce the result of our ratification process, which ended on Monday. The ballots were counted by the independent auditing firm Deloitte. I'm happy to announce that the vote found that 86% of the physician voters were not willing to accept government's offer. So that's 86% of physicians voted against the government's offer. We had a return rate of 72%, which is considered quite good. And we feel these results send a clear message to government that physicians in the province want a contract that is fair and addresses the deficiencies in the system. And I think the results speak for themselves. This offer that they had made fails to address the many challenges we face in delivering safe, quality care to our patients. Our members are in agreement that if we want to attract new doctors to our province and keep those that are already here, we have to be competitive with our colleagues in the other Atlantic provinces. We maintained during the ratification process that a vote to reject government's offer was a vote in favor of binding arbitration, and our position has not changed. We are still seeking entrenched arbitration provisions in the contract with government for the future, and we are willing to give up the right to strike in exchange for legislated binding arbitration, and we're willing to be classified as an essential service. And I think these results reiterate that our members feel the same thing. We are prepared to negotiate with government until Christmas, and we've written a letter today to Premier Cathy Dunderdale asking her for a meeting in a last-ditch attempt to reach a negotiated settlement before Christmas. If that is not achievable, we request that the offer and this current impasse goes to binding arbitration at this time. We were willing to negotiate and work as hard as we can before Christmas to try to achieve a negotiated deal at this time.
What happens if there is no deal by Christmas and there is no agreement on binding arbitration? I mean, do you then get to the point that you have to consider job actions such as withdrawing of services?
That's been our stand sort of all the way along, is that we want the binding arbitration. We're willing to try to negotiate a last-ditch deal between now and Christmas. If that's not achievable, then we would prefer to go to binding arbitration. If that's not available, then we'll have to look at other options that we have.
So are you sort of saying that the NLMA and your members could withdraw services early in January if there's no deal by Christmas? Are we at that point?
Well, at this point, all we've done is rejected the government's latest offer. There's no offer on the table. We are willing to negotiate very hard to try to achieve an offer, but we're sort of setting Christmas as a realistic deadline. If we can't get a deal by Christmas, then I would suggest that this has to go to binding arbitration.
Would you need to have a strike vote for withdrawal services, or does this amount to a mandate?
We'd have to sort of discuss that at the board level. The board has not gone beyond hearing the results of this of these votes, so we haven't sort of gone to the point of considering this a strike mandate.
This is a pretty strong rejection of the government's offer, but I noticed that Mr. Ritter and some of your other staff were meeting with Treasury Board, I think it was Monday. So there obviously have been some discussions going on even while this ratification process was unfolding. How would you characterize the tone of the discussions between your executive director and the government?
I think they've been cordial. The government asked, as you know, we met December 3rd with the Minister of Finance, Minister of Health, and their officials. And since then, there's been a few meetings with officials. Again, just to clarify our position, they weren't negotiations, but they were discussions about issues to clarify our points once again. So I think government has a fairly good understanding of what we need to reach for a deal. And it's a matter of them deciding if they want to reach that deal. And like I said, we're trying to hopefully achieve this by Christmas.
So there's 10 negotiating days till Christmas. I mean, what do you think your odds are of getting a deal?
We hope for the best. All we can do is hope for the best. We're not very good at picking odds.
Have you had any indications, though, from government that they're willing to move on a lot of these key issues?
I think our discussions have been fairly frank and cordial and open, and as we said before, they have a new premier and there's a new mandate, and they are really wanting to reach a deal just like we're wanting to reach a deal. So I think the discussions have been very frank and open, and we hope for the best.
But they seemed to make it clear to you last time that they would like to get a deal by Christmas, so do you think that'll help move things along?
I think so. I think, you know, we all want the same thing, and the patients of the province and the people of the province want the same thing too. They want a resolution to this impasse, and the sooner the better.
What was the total vote after, the number that voted?
The total number of ballots, there was 1,195 mailed ballots. The return was 861 ballots were returned for a return rate of 72%. And 86% of those voted against the government's offer. So a very small number voted for the government's offer.
And is there a time period after this rejection that you would be in a strike position? Is there a number of days in your MOA?
No, there's nothing specific like that. We're free to talk about that at a later time. So, like I said, we have not. We don't declare this necessarily a strike mandate, even though some people would read a very strong rejection of government's offer. As we said, we want to go to binding arbitration, and we're prepared for that as an alternative to withdrawal of services. So we would still have to discuss that at the board level. The board has not made contingencies to decide where we're going in January.
To get to the point of a strike mandate, does that require another vote of your membership through a mail-in ballot, through general meetings?
Not necessarily. The board would be the ones who would be determining what we have to do to inform our members about things. So I don't think it necessarily has to be another month-long mail-in ballot. This is a very slow, relatively costly process. So I think this was used in this case because the government wanted us to bring it to our members, and we wanted to do it as fairly and as unbiased as possible. But whether we have to do this every time we try and make a decision is not necessarily the case.
So just to be clear, if you were to decide to take job actions such as strike, the executive board of the Medical Association can make that call? Is that correct?
It would be the board of directors in consultation with our members. We would probably have another meeting.
And how difficult would that be for you to decide as doctors to take that kind of action?
It'd be very hard. As we've said all along, we don't look forward to that. That's our only recourse when we don't have any other dispute resolution mechanism. And we're asking, and we've continued to ask for months now, for some type of binding arbitration so we don't ever have to face this. And we're willing to give up that right to strike, to withdraw services for the future if it's put in legislation. And we think that would be beneficial to the people, be beneficial to the government, and would be beneficial to our members.
And where do you think things stand with the 14 specialists who had said that they would resign by February 4th? Some had indicated that they might reconsider if a deal is reached by Christmas. Can we just get an update on where you think that stands?
I think it's the same. Nothing has changed. Obviously, as time goes on, the pressure on them to accept offers that they've received from other parts of Canada grows greater. So I think that there is a timeline here, and that's why we feel that if we have something by Christmas, there's a good hope that some of those specialists or most of those specialists would rescind their resignations. But if it goes into January and it gets close to that February 4th deadline, it becomes harder for them to cancel their deals that they're already making with other places in the country.
Do you already know when and how discussions with the government will take place?
No, we're keeping the lines of communication open. We're happy to meet. We're happy to involve the Premier. As I said, we've written a letter to the Premier, which has been sent off today in a last-ditch effort to try to get the negotiations to conclude. And we're willing to work really, really hard with this government to try to reach a negotiated settlement to this particular deal. If we don't achieve that by Christmas, I would suggest that the only options are binding arbitration.
We'll be waiting to see what the government's replies to.
See what government's replies. And we're keeping the lines of communication open.
So a deal by Christmas or binding arbitration by Christmas, and if neither happens, you consider job action.
That'd be a fair summary.
When's your next meeting?
Pardon me?
When's your next meeting? Negotiation with government, I mean.
It's up in the air right at the moment. We have no meetings planned right at the moment. Not for the rest of the day, as far as I'm aware. Okay. Thank you very much.